Badass of the Week is produced by High Five Content. It is 2 o'clock in the afternoon on October 25th, 1881. Four tough-looking men stride together down the main street of Tombstone, Arizona, their long black coats and waxed stashes blowing in super slow motion, the polished gunmetal of their six-shooters glinting in the desert sun. These are men on a mission, and that mission is to confront a dangerous gang of cattle-rustling outlaws, lay down some old-school justice with the barrels of their peacemakers, and leave the cross-examinations for the Undertaker. One of these men is John Henry Holliday, a dentist dying of tuberculosis, who knows he doesn't have much time left and is convinced that he has nothing to lose. Of the four gunslingers on their way to the OK Corral, it is Doc that these outlaws fear the most. Hello, and welcome back to Badass of the Week. My name is Ben Thompson, and I am joined today by Badass of the Week producer Andrew Jacobs. Andrew, thank you so much for coming back on the show. It's good to have you back.
It's good to be back. I feel like I'm more like producer and occasional co-host at this point.
You kind of are, yeah. Anytime we're like, we need an episode and we don't have a guest and Pat can't make it. It's like, Andrew, I need you to help. Please come help me talk about something cool.
I'm coming off the bench, to in relief.
Yes.
Yeah, it's always fun, and this one I'm particularly excited about. More about the reason we're telling this story. The character is incredible, but this is sort of a somber occasion because Val Kilmer passed away just recently, and that is how we decided to do this story.
Yeah, and it's a story that I feel like you're uniquely qualified to talk about, being a guy who's kind of in the middle of a lot of Hollywood stuff.
Yeah, big Hollywood producer. I hanging out with all those guys all the time.
First name basis.
First name basis, Val, or I like to call him the Kilm. I mean, honestly, when you look at Val Kilmer's his filmography, he's got multiple badasses that I feel like we could do.
Absolutely.
Like he himself, I think, almost qualifies as like a badass of the week candidate. He's just so awesome.
Absolutely. There was a thing I saw once where the Marine Corps was like, there was a Marine Corps instructor who watched him reload his AR in heat and was like, took that clip and was showing it to Marines to try to show them like a proper technique for a combat reload. So like, it's a guy who took his job very seriously. And this was, Heat was at a time like the pre John Wick era where a lot of movie stars were still holding the gun down at their hip and spraying bullets all over the place and firing 10,000 rounds into the air.
Yeah.
So he had that took that real dedication to getting it right.
I mean, that Heat shootout is just the shootout is iconic, and like,
oh yeah,
I Val Kilmer, sort of makes that for sure.
Absolutely.
I think I had read another interesting sort of anecdote of almost a what if this week, that apparently he and Will Forte became good friends. Val Kilmer appeared in Will Forte's movie MacGruber. And they became really good friends along the way, apparently. And at some point, I think it was Val Kilmer's idea. Val Kilmer loved The Amazing Race and wanted to team up with Will Forte as a team to do The Amazing Race.
Oh man, I'm sad we did not get that.
Apparently his agents and their agent, they were like, we were going to do it. It was going to be great. And then their agents and managers were like, what? No.
No.
But like, what agents and managers, man, why are they ruining all the fun?
I know. These guys want to do it. They should do it.
You're talking about Hollywood people right there. You know, ruining
damn Hollywood
ruining the
people
fun. We could have had Val Kilmer and Will Forte as teammates on The Amazing Race. But going back to his filmography, though, I mean, there's obviously Tombstone, right? That's kind of why we're talking Doc Holliday. And if you haven't seen Tombstone, but you like this podcast, I would highly recommend you hit pause right now. Hit pause. Go watch Tombstone. It is on every... Yeah.
Because in this episode and in many other episodes, I have a tendency to quote Tombstone. And I'm sure it will come up several times in this episode, and has probably come up in past episodes where I will use the Doc Holliday line from Tombstone, because there's so many good ones.
There's so many good ones. But the movie is like... Everything about that movie is the epitome of badass.
It's Kurt Russell and Sam Elliott and Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday, right? And they're
Bill
having a
Paxton.
gunfight. Bill Paxton. They're doing a gunfight at the OK Corral.
Michael Biehn, Powers Booth.
Michael Bihn's awesome.
I mean, it's all badass, like 80s, 90s Hollywood actors. My favorite part, this is how you know that movie is like the sort of the epitome of badass. Obviously, leading up to the gunfight itself, which we will certainly talk about all the real aspects. There's just a long walking scene. They're like the four of them, Sam Elliott, Kurt Russell, Val Kilmer, and Bill Paxton, all in their sort of like black outfits. They're just like, all right, now we're going to walk to the OK Corral.
In front of fire, because there's a burning building behind them. Walk in slow motion in front of fire, heavily armed.
Yeah, it's walking, and you like them. It's building and it's building and it's building. You're like, oh, this is going down, right? So that's excellent. But when you get to the end of the movie and the credits roll, the credits just roll over them walking for like 5 minutes. It's just like, look how badass these guys are just walking at the camera. We're gonna roll the credits over this. That's how you know it's badass. It's like, these guys, look at how badass they look just walking. That's enough.
Yes.
So
and he like you said, he's awesome in so many things. I think a lot of people's first encounter with him might have been Real Genius, or probably Top Gun, but the first time I saw him was in Willow. And he was Mad Mardigan. He was awesome in that. I loved that movie when I was a kid. And I remember thinking that guy, especially like, there's that bit where he was looking for a sword the whole movie, and then he finally gets one, and then he's awesome. And you're like, oh man, that was like such a cool moment for me when I was, I don't know, whatever the appropriate age was, 7 or 8 or whatever, when that movie came out. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I've been blown away by that.
I think there's another, obviously, Iceman, Top Gun, but there's another top movie that I think is worth mentioning, Top Secret.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right.
He fought the Nazis in that movie. Yes. There's an incredible Old West saloon style fight scene, except it all happens underwater. It's a comedy, if you can't tell. And Val Kilmer was very funny, so totally worth watching.
He did comedy really well. I mean, Real Genius, he's great in, right? He steals the show in that movie.
But there's one other movie, though, that I truly love in this filmography that I've watched many times, that I kind of like feel like we got to come back and do a badass episode on. Either the movie or the true story, you tell me if there's enough there. But The Ghost in the Darkness.
I don't know this.
You're killing me. You're killing me. You don't know The Ghost in the Darkness? Val Kilmer plays a railway engineer in Africa in like the 1800s or something, and basically these two lions keep coming and eating people. It's based on a true story. It's based on a true story of the man-eaters of Savo. Yeah.
Looking this up.
And they keep coming and eating people. And ultimately, what's interesting is Val Kilmer's not the badass in this. Michael Douglas shows up, and he's like this big game hunter who comes into town to try to kill these man-eaters. The movie is... It's incredible. It's incredible.
It's written by William Goldman, who wrote The Princess Bride. That's interesting.
Yeah, he's solid.
Wild. Yeah.
Ben, you got to watch this movie ASAP.
Yeah, I'm writing it down. I'm not gonna.
It is delightful. Delightful. These lions are just killing eating people left and right. Like I said, based on
I'm totally into this. Yeah. I'm sold. Val Kilmer and Michael Douglas fighting lions.
All right. I wish I could. It's one of those movies like I want to like see you watch it.
We'll do I don't know, what is it called when a podcast watches a movie and talks about it?
Rewatch. Yeah.
Rewatch. Yeah. I know there's a word for this.
Yeah. But okay. We should, for the audience, go watch that movie too, and then let's talk about Doc Holliday.
Yeah,
I kind of feel like a lot of people wouldn't know who he is today without the Val Kilmer piece of it.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we could talk about Val Kilmer. We haven't talked about like The Doors. I thought The Saint was really good. I was out in the 90s.
I enjoyed The Saint. Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, you're right. We need to talk about one of his most iconic roles, and perhaps I want to say the most badass dentist of all time. Certainly the most badass dentist in American history, perhaps the most famous dentist ever in American history.
It's an excellent question.
Yes.
Listeners, if you know of any badass dentists, please let us know.
Yes. So Doc Holliday, John Henry Holliday. We are going to take a really quick break. And when we come back, we're going to get into the legend of dentist, gambler, gunfighter Doc Holliday, and how, kind of the true story behind that slow motion dude carrying a shotgun, walking in front of fire with a big black hat on. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back to Badass of the Week. I am here with producer Andrew Jacobs, and we are talking about Doc Holliday, the genteel Southern gambler who had absolutely no fear of death and possibly killed many, many people in gun and knife fights over the course of a very short life.
And perhaps in dentistry.
Yes. He's practicing dentistry in the 1880s at a time when it probably resembles like the Spanish Inquisition.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Who knows?
Just iron tools and you just grab and yank. You got a toothache? I think I got a solution for that.
Yeah.
Wild West dentistry. It's like the early days of anesthesia. Like some of the people that he works with in dentistry are some of the first people to use anesthesia as we know it. So yeah, interesting stuff. You would not have wanted to be alive in the past. You would,
no.
Right? As much as it feels like the world is ending and things are falling down now, like you would never want to go back in time.
Yeah, you got a toothache, you're gonna die.
You're gonna die, yeah.
Yeah.
Part of his coursework in dentistry was metallurgy, because he needed to make the tools and like work on the tools, and also to make like the metal fillings for the teeth. So that was part of your coursework in dentistry in the 1880s was metallurgy. That just sounds barbaric, you
have to make the tools.
Yeah. I gotta fix this tool, and then I gotta use usually I use this to make bullets, but I'm gonna melt down the lead into this thing. I'm gonna jam into your tooth. It'll stop that toothache, solve your cavities, pile some lead in there. Okay, so regardless,
that was his thing, putting lead into people, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so Doc Holliday's father is Major Henry Holliday. Major Holliday was a soldier, obviously a veteran of the Cherokee Wars and of the Mexican-American War. Henry Holliday marries a woman named Alice McKee, and they settled down in Griffin, Georgia after the Mexican-American War. Henry Holliday is a man of some means. He works as a land speculator, like he buys and sells land. He ran for local office. He was kind of a politician. He had a drugstore. He had decent means and was well educated. So the two of them, they have Alice and Henry. They have on August 14th, 1851. Their family grows in size with the addition of John Henry Holliday. John is Major Henry Holliday is his father. His brother's name is John Holliday. So Doc is named after both of these guys, his dad and his uncle. Okay. Doc is born with the cleft palate, which is, talk about not wanting to go back in the past. A cleft palate is a pretty serious birth defect that nowadays can be fixed quite easily. But in 1851, it was not such an easy thing to do.
Is that why you always see him with the big mustache?
Yeah, it is, because it created this scar, and so he has the mustache to kind of cover up the scar. I mean, also it was the fashion of the time, but yeah, that is why he grew it.
Very convenient.
Yes. And so one of the hard things with the cleft palate is you can't eat. So his mother, Alice, she feeds him with an eyedropper and just starts kind of like hovering over him at all times to try to make sure that he makes it through his infancy. Wow. They had lost their first kid. They had a daughter who didn't survive infancy. This is another reason why you would never want to go back into the past. But Doc has that cleft palate. She's feeding him with an eyedropper. And Uncle John is a doctor, and he comes and performs a surgery. Like Doc's dad and uncle show up to do surgery in the house. John was a surgeon, so it wasn't like complete like backwoods like kind of situation. But these guys are doctors. They show up. They perform this surgery, which is extremely dangerous, and there was a chance he wasn't going to make it, but the surgery goes well. They fix his cleft palate. And his mother then spends the rest of his childhood drilling him in with like speech drills to fix his speech, because he had a speech impediment from having that defect. So she teaches him she's very religious. They're Protestant. She's very religious. She gives him religious instruction. She teaches him like manners and, the whole Southern gentleman thing that he's very famous for. That's his mom kind of drilling that into him. Speech lessons. She teaches him Latin, and his dad tells him stories about badass stuff from the wars that he was fighting in, badass history stories and war stories from the Mexican-American War and the Cherokee Wars. And so, okay,
I read my kids Dr. Seuss.
Yes, I read my kids.
Maybe I've been doing it wrong.
And so, so the Civil War breaks out in 1861, and Major Henry Holliday is called up into service. He doesn't stay in service long. He gets invalided out because he's from illness, and he's older at this point. And they go back to Georgia. And then when William Tecumseh Sherman starts moving through Georgia, burning everything, they have to flee. So they pack up, they move to the southern part of Georgia. They move down to Valdosta, which is kind of near Florida, and set up shop down there. Now, this is kind of the beginning of a tragedy for Doc Holliday, because, they have to move out of their home. They move into this new place, and his mother gets tuberculosis, which it's interesting. I came across this when I was first starting to study Civil War history. Is one of the other words for tuberculosis is consumption, because like your lungs are getting consumed by this disease and you're just coughing, and it's very, very serious pulmonary disease. But when I first started reading reports and firsthand accounts from the Civil War, I keep reading of these things of people being killed by consumption. And just being like, what? Like 5 guys were killed by consumption? What consumed them? Is it the man-eating lion you were just talking about? Just running around, just alligators and stuff running around out there eating people?
Cannibals,
Yeah, just what is this? Yeah. So 1866, Alice Holliday dies at the age of 37 from consumption. Oof. Another one where you would never want to go back in time. Okay, so Doc Holliday is 15. He's not Doc Holliday yet. He's John Holliday, but I'm going to call him Doc because that differentiates him from his dad and his uncle. Anyway, Doc is 15. His dad remarries almost immediately to like a much younger woman. And Doc's not too happy about that. He's growing up in Valdosta during Reconstruction, which is a really hard time in Georgia. He starts learning to shoot. He's learning to ride. He's learning history stuff. He learns to play cards around this time. There was a woman who was an employee of his father. Her name was Sophie Walton. She was an emancipated slave who was working at their house, and she taught him how to deal cards and how to play. And she taught him a couple of games, and he was just like obsessed with it after he learned how to play cards. So, okay. At some point, he leaves. His relationship with his dad gets a little strained. He leaves and goes up north. He goes to the Philadelphia College of Dental Surgery, which is one of the best dental schools in America at the time. He takes his courses, including metallurgy. In 1872, he graduates. He goes for a very short period of time to St. Louis because one of his college buddies was working at a practice there. But before long, he's back in Georgia again. And yeah, like we said, he's practicing dentistry at a time when dentistry is not quite what it is today. They don't just give you the laughing gas.
It's more of an art than a science, let's say.
That's a very good way to put it. So that's going fine. And then at some point, we are going to start to see an important component of Doc Holliday. He is, he's educated. He's a doctor. He performs medicine. He speaks fluent Latin. He's got this genteel Southern accent. He has these genteel ways about him that makes him come across as this, Southern gentleman, sort of, Georgia aristocracy. He's a great piano player. He dresses really nice. He's brave. He's smart. He's clever. Got a quick wit. He's really good at cards, but he's got a temper. He's an angry dude. He's armed at all times with a 6-shooter and a Bowie knife, like a big honking knife, basically like a mini machete that he carries. And he, in 1872, gets into an argument and either hits or shoots at a group of people in a gunfight. And that's going to be the beginning of Doc Holliday's problems. He fires a warning shot. Like there's some kind of argument. He fires a warning shot. One of the other guys pulls a gun on him, and then he starts firing at the dude and his buddies. There's a gunfight. Both sides end up kind of running for it. And now we've got, the authorities get involved here.
I mean, it seems like it all fits, in the sense of like, you're a dentist and you also have like this like piece of you that's super angry and maybe wants to hurt people.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's required for the job if you want to be a dentist at this time period.
Yeah. I don't know if you ever see a Little Shop of Horrors, the dentist character there is like just actually like a sadist.
Yes, absolutely. That is what I'm thinking with this. You have to be at least a little okay with yanking somebody's tooth out of their head while they're not under anesthesia.
So it's always great. They're like, they're up in your mouth and all of a sudden they're just like, well, you're bleeding. And I'm like, well, that's because you stabbed me with something in the mouth.
Yeah. And then they're like, well, anyway, you grew up in Florida, is that right? Okay.
Yeah. So shooting people doesn't seem like a big stretch.
Honestly, shooting people seems more humane
and
coming at them with the drill,
And just to be clear, this is we are not anti-dentites.
We are not anti-dentites. Badass of the Week is not an anti-dentite production. It's just always funny.
Yeah.
Dentists are not a protected class.
Yeah.
Okay, so a little bit of trouble for him in Georgia. So another problem happens for him around this time is that he realizes that he has now come down with tuberculosis as well. He's not old. He's a young guy just out of college, but he catches TB, which is extremely contagious and at the time incurable. You can manage it, but there's no cure for this. And so it's the same thing he watched his mother die from, and the death is like slow and painful. And, if you've seen Tombstone, that's what's killing him in that movie. It's his future, and he's seen it, what's going to happen to him. And now he knows that this is something he's going to have to deal with. Okay. So 1872, he moves to Dallas, Texas, because what's believed at the time is that dry air and heat is a little better for you, a little better for the illness. Like you don't cough quite as much. It just kind of helps you breathe a little bit more to have the dry air. The humidity is not so great for it. So he leaves Georgia, goes to Dallas, and opens up his dentist practice there. And here's one thing about, dentistry is that you do have your hands in somebody else's mouth. And, you know, the understanding of germs and germ theory and all of that wasn't quite what it is today. But if you're laying in that dentist chair and somebody's got, you know, tools in your mouth and they start hacking uncontrollably because they've got tuberculosis and are coughing in your face and stuff, that is not a dentist that you're going to go back to.
Not ideal.
No, you really don't want. That's not a quality you're looking for in a dentist, even in 1872. So he's having a hard time getting patients because he can't stop coughing.
I think that's fair.
It's fair. Yeah, it's fair. It makes sense. And, you know, it's just hard luck, right? I've trained in this thing and now I can't do it because I can't, I have a incurable illness. Okay. Yeah. So one thing he is still good at, though, is gambling and cards. And so he finds work in Dallas in a saloon as a faro dealer. Now, you know, we always see him kind of playing. You always kind of think of him as a poker guy. But Doc Holliday's game was a game called Faro. And it's you know, you play with a single deck of cards and a pack of chips. It's a betting game where you sit around a table. There's a guy who is the dealer. He's kind of like a blackjack dealer kind of, and he sits around and runs the game. And guys come into the tavern and they can sit down, or the saloon, they can come down, sit down, they can play a couple hands, put some money on it. And his job is to sit there and run these games. And he's very good at it. He wins a lot as the dealer. And there's some suggestion.
The dealer gets to play. Okay.
The dealer gets to play. The dealer runs the game. He gets to play. And there is some speculation that it might have been very easy to cheat at this game if you were the dealer.
I haven't seen Faro in any casinos lately. I could be wrong, but
yeah, you don't see it very often. I watched a YouTube video on how to play it. And it's just one of those things where I'm just like, I don't get any of this, you know, like the entire video, everything is like referred to using terminology from the game. Like, well, the first trick, and you took the bet and then went on the river. And it's like, I'm like not
Calvin ball.
Right. Yeah. The entire thing is, I don't have the definitions necessary, the vocabulary necessary to understand what all of these things are we're referring to. And so I felt like at some point after trying to watch this video for like 3 minutes, that this wasn't really going to contribute anything to the podcast for me to be able to explain how Faro works. It's a card game. Dealer sits there. He deals to people around the table. And like Doc Holliday always comes out ahead. The house always wins.
We're going to get angry emails from our Faro playing listeners.
Yes. The Seattle Faro Club is going to show up at my, while I'm picking my kid up from school and have angry words with me.
Yeah.
But so not only does Doc, he's in Dallas, and when you're playing a game like this, you're hanging out in saloons with shady characters in the Old West, many of whom are armed and a lot of whom think you're cheating, even if you're not cheating. It's not a great way to make friends. You're going to make a lot of enemies sitting in these smoky saloons with alcohol and cigars and cards and gambling, and you're taking people's money. So he makes enemies. And a lot of times those disputes involve fist fighting or knife fighting or guns being drawn and possibly shot. So in Dallas, he makes enough enemies that he has to leave town because people are it makes his life hard because he's got too many enemies. So he leaves. In 1875, he's in Austin, gets into a gunfight with a saloon keeper there. Nobody gets killed, but then 2 days later, he gets into another gunfight and does kill somebody. He's a pretty prominent citizen of the town. So the people of Austin organize a posse that chases him out of town. He has to go on the run. He goes to Jacksboro, where he gets into more gunfights, kills another guy, goes to Fort Richardson, gets into a gunfight with a soldier, kills that guy. There's a reward posted for his capture. Possibly U.S. Marshals get involved. And now at this point, his life kind of becomes traveling around. He's in Texas, Kansas, Wyoming, New Mexico, Nevada. He's using fake names. He's traveling around. He'll go to a town, show up, start dealing faro, make some money. Somebody will get mad at some point. Weapons will be drawn. He'll start shooting, and then he's got to go to the next town because the law or just angry vigilantes are after him. That's Doc Holliday.
He's just too good at Pharaoh. He's just too good. Too good at Pharaoh and too good at shooting people.
Yep. What's the thing I saw once? They were talking about online games, and it said, like, you either die a noob or you live long enough to be called a hacker. And so Doc's a hacker as far as this is concerned.
Yeah.
Okay, at some point along these adventures, he meets a woman named Mary Catherine Harani. She's the daughter of Hungarian immigrants, and she is a woman that works at a saloon, one of the saloons that he works at, or dance hall or something. He writes about her using the very unflattering nickname Big Nose Kate, which you'll see her referred to as a lot. I'll probably call her Catherine or Kate, but yeah, so they, she's a tough lady. She works in these saloons, dance halls, gambling establishments. She may have been a prostitute, maybe not. That might be a thing that people have made up later on to, talk trash on Doc or whatever. But she's kind of awesome. And one of the things that, one of my favorite stories of Catherine Harani is at one point in 1877, Doc is dealing faro at a table, he's actually dealing poker at this point. And there's a guy in there named Ed Bailey, and he's kind of like the big tough, like, bully dude who like runs the town. Basically, he's like the toughest guy, and he comes in there and does whatever he wants, like he owns the place. And Ed Bailey's in there, and they're playing poker, and Doc's running it, and Bailey keeps picking up the discards and looking at them to see what cards are in the discard pile.
You can't do that.
You can't do that. And Doc tells him you can't do that. Ed tells him something back. Doc tells him again. When he does it again, he says you can't do that. The third time Ed does it, Doc like grabs his hand. Ed Bailey pulls a gun and reaches over the table at him. Doc pulls his Bowie knife and slashes him across the stomach, and he bleeds out and dies on the table.
Damn.
Yeah. Doc gets arrested by the cops. The cops come and they grab him, and they're going to haul him off to be arrested. And Kate is like, oh, this is bad news for us. So she sets
the least.
Yeah. So she sets a building on fire, an unoccupied building on fire. And so the cops get distracted by it. She pulls a gun on the cop that's arresting Doc and disarms him. Then her and Doc steal horses and ride off for Dodge City.
All right. I mean, yeah. Nice work, Kate.
Yeah, nice work, Kate. So, all right. So he ends up eventually in Dodge City. At some point along the way, he was dealing at a faro saloon, and this might be in Dodge City, might be before that. He was dealing at a faro saloon, and one of the guys, there was some army guy there who was he was a little drunk, and he liked one of the girls at the saloon, but she didn't like him back. So he got mad, and he goes out into the street, and he pulls a gun, and he starts shooting into the building. And so then Doc has to like put his cards away, get up from the faro booth, walk outside and shoot him, and then go back in to keep dealing faro.
Like, one moment, gentlemen.
Yeah, I'm kind of the bouncer and the dealer here. Yeah. I'll be right back.
Pardon this interruption.
Yes. Okay, so he gets to Dodge City, and that is where he first meets Wyatt Earp. Doc is dealing faro at the Long Branch Saloon, which is a great name for a cowboy bar. And Earp comes in because he's a deputy and he's hunting a fugitive and is trying to get the reward. Now, whether he's doing it out because he just is an agent of law and order, or whether he's just basically a bounty hunter is unclear. But Earp wants to find this fugitive. Doc is dealing cards in town, and he's very helpful and helps Earp get the find the guy and get the reward and stuff. Okay, great. That's kind of how they first meet. They become friends because Wyatt Earp is a big card player, and he likes gambling, and he likes saloons, and he likes cigars, and he likes all the things that Doc is into at this point.
It's better to be friends. Doc's friend than his enemy, that's for sure.
Yes, and the great example of that happens in 1879, where Wyatt is this lawman. He's this kind of local somewhere between, this is Dodge City, like at the height of the cowboy times. So this is kind of Red Dead Redemption, like, it's the Wild West. It's literally the Wild West.
There's a reason why you've heard of Dodge City. You don't know why, but you've heard of it.
Yes, because it's a wild cowboy town, and he's kind of a lawman there, kind of a bounty hunter. He's some kind of mix of things, Earp. And he gets on the wrong side of this, or he's getting on the wrong side of this gang in town that he's arrested a couple of their guys. They're mad at him. They want to make a show. So they ride through town one night on their horses, and they're shooting guns up in the air. They're shooting at signs and windows and stuff. And
saying yeehaw, I assume.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like real Yosemite Sam kind of stuff. And they go into one of these bars, or they go into the Long Branch Saloon and to like cause trouble. And so they enter, and Wyatt Earp comes through the front door, and he's got his gun ready, but there's a bunch of these guys, and they've been waiting for him. So they were the whole thing was to get Earp out there. And so when he comes through the door, the leader of that gang pulls his gun on Earp, like gets a drop on him. He has his gun out, and he's like, he says basically like, your time has come, Earp. And then, and then he hears a click from behind him, and coming out from the back room where he was dealing faro, heard a disturbance out front, is Doc Holliday walking through that back door with his gun, puts it right to the back of this guy's head, and looks at his buddies and says, what he's quoted as saying is, any of you bastards pulls a gun and your leader here loses what little brains he's got left.
Man,
awesome, right?
That's good.
Although he does it in the accent, he does it sounding like Val Kilmer from from Tombstone, which is even better, right?
Yeah, eat your heart out, William Goldman. You can't write fat.
That's it, man. That was awesome, and the Earp credits him with saving his life that night, which he probably did. Earp moves on, leaves Dodge City. So does Doc. Doc is going around doing his Doc Holliday thing. He eventually gets in trouble in Dodge City and has to leave. Goes to Trinidad, Colorado, where he kills a guy named Kid Colton. Ends up in Las Vegas, where he kills a guy named Mike Gordon. You never know with the Wild West stuff, because legends and of these outlaws and things, they get blown out of proportion over time, and maybe, who knows. But Doc Holliday's is credited with killing anywhere from like 5 to 30 people during his career as a gunfighter. We don't really know.
Countless others via his career as a dentist with tuberculosis.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so he's in Vegas. Kate is kind of off again, on again. She hangs around, and every once in a while she leaves for a while, and he wants her to stop going to the saloon. She doesn't want to. They fight, they break up, they get back together. That kind of real Ross and Rachel situation here. And he's in Vegas. They're in Vegas together, and Doc gets a letter from his buddy Wyatt Earp. Wyatt Earp's like, "Hey, I'm in this town, this lovely town, Tombstone, Arizona, and we need dentists here, and we need faro dealers here. So it's a silver mining town. They've got a bunch of money here. They just found silver. Why don't you come on down to Cochise County, and you can find a place at the Alhambra Saloon, dealing your cards and doing your thing. And who knows, maybe there will be some adventures for you in Tombstone, Arizona."
Yeah, great.
It's a land of opportunity, Tombstone.
Yeah.
I said it's called that because the guy went out there looking for silver, and somebody told him, like, all you'll find out there is your tombstone. And then he found silver, and he named it Tombstone as like an FU to that guy, like why they call it Led Zeppelin,
Incredible. I love the just really creative writing here.
Yeah,
from all these guys. Should we take a pause here?
Okay, so now we've seen the early life of Doc Holliday, and we are going to get into his adventures with Wyatt Earp in Tombstone, Arizona. But as we're recording this, it looks like it's going to be a two-parter. So stay with us, and on Thursday, we will continue the story with Doc Holliday and the gunfight at the OK Corral. We will see you for that one. Badass of the Week is produced by High Five Content. Executive producers are me, Ben Thompson, Dr. Patricia Larish, and Andrew Jacobs. Writing is by me and Pat. Story editing by Ian Jacobs. Mixing and music and sound design by Jude Brewer. Special thanks to Noel Brown at iHeartRadio. Badass of the Week is based on my website, badassoftheweek.com, where you can read all sorts of stories about other badasses. If you want to reach out with questions or ideas, you can email us at badasspodcast@badassoftheweek.com. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, follow, listen, and tell your friends and tell your enemies. And please leave us a rating. We'll be back next week with another one.